Commander Sarah Chen stood at the colony's observation deck, watching New Eden's triple moons cast shimmering reflections across the planet's endless oceans. Her calloused hand instinctively traced the scarred surface of her plasma rifle, a habit formed through 15 years of marine service. Below, the colony's floating platforms swayed gently with the waves, home to the last 5,000 human survivors on this water world. The door hissed open behind her. Commander, Captain Rodriguez's voice was tight with tension. "We've detected something." Sarah turned, noting the dark circles under her second-in-command's eyes. They all carried the weight of last month's devastating attack, when the colony's defensive fleet was reduced to orbital debris by an unknown enemy. "Show me." In the command center, holographic displays showed a pulsing signal emanating from the deep ocean trenches 50 kilometers east of the colony. The signal pattern was like nothing in their databases, not random enough to be natural, too complex to be human. "It started 3 hours ago," Rodriguez explained, manipulating the display. "Whatever it is, it's getting stronger." Sarah studied the wavelength patterns. After the attack that decimated their fleet, the Colony Council had voted to maintain radio silence, fearing any transmission might attract more hostile attention. But this was different. These patterns, she mused, they're harmonically structured, almost like music. Rodriguez finished. "Our xenolinguists had the same thought. They think it might be a language." Sarah completed the thought, her mind racing. In 15 years of space exploration, she'd never encountered anything quite like this. The signal's complexity suggested intelligence, but its biological rhythms hinted at something truly alien. "The Council wants to ignore it," Rodriguez said quietly. "After what happened to the fleet." Sarah's jaw tightened. The Council's fear was understandable, but it was also dangerous. They were alone on this water world, their resources dwindling. If there was intelligent life here, they needed to know, whether it was friend or foe. "Get me a deep-sea pod," she ordered. "Full combat loadout." Rodriguez stepped forward, alarmed. "Commander, the Council explicitly ordered." "I'm not asking permission, Captain." Sarah checked her rifle's charge. Sometimes it's easier to ask forgiveness than authorization, especially when those giving authorization are too scared to see straight. The deep-sea pod hummed to life around her as Sarah guided it into the darkness. Her neural implants connected seamlessly with the pod's systems, feeding her environmental data and sonar readings. The pressure increased as she descended, the pod's reinforced hull creaking under the strain. At 3,000 meters, she saw them. Bioluminescent patterns swirled in the darkness, creating complex geometric shapes that pulsed in rhythm with the signal they detected. As her pod's lights illuminated the scene, she gasped. Dozens of humanoid figures moved through the water with fluid grace, their translucent skin emanating soft blue-green light. Their large, expressive eyes reflected her pod's lights, and intricate patterns of bioluminescence flowed across their bodies like living tattoos. They were beautiful, and they were clearly intelligent. One of them approached her pod, movements cautious but curious. Sarah noticed it wore something like armor, crafted from iridescent shells and some kind of metallic material she didn't recognize. A warrior, then, or their equivalent. The being pressed a webbed hand against her pod's viewport. Instantly, Sarah's neural implants registered a surge of harmonic energy, not sound exactly, but something between sound and light, carrying clear patterns of meaning. "I am Zaryan." The patterns translated in her mind had implants struggling to process this new form of communication. "You are not of the deep." Sarah activated her pod's external speakers, hoping her words would somehow translate through whatever medium these beings used to communicate. "I am Commander Sarah Chen of the human colony New Eden. We detected your signal." The being, Zaryan, rippled with patterns of light. "The signal was meant for you, surface dweller. We have watched your kind since you arrived. We had to know if you were like the others." "Others?" Sarah's combat instincts flared. You mean the ones who attacked our fleet? They come from the deepest trenches. Zaryan's patterns grew darker, more urgent. Ancient machines that sleep in the abyss. Your arrival has awakened them, and now they hunger again, as they did in the time of our ancestors. Sarah's mind raced. The attack on their fleet hadn't been random. These ancient machines, whatever they were, saw humanity as a threat, or maybe just as prey. And these beings, these luminari, as her mind dubbed them, had reached out to warn them. "Why help us?" she asked. "Your people could have stayed hidden." Zaryan's patterns shifted to something softer, almost sad. "Because we remember. Once, long ago, our civilization reached for the stars, as yours did. The deep ones destroyed everything we built above the waves. We survived only by retreating to the depths, learning to hide our technology in biology, our cities in coral reefs. But we never forgot, and we will not watch another species fall to their hunger." A distant rumbling vibrated through the water. Zaryan's patterns flashed with alarm. "They come. You must return to your surface dwelling. But know this, Commander Sarah Chen, you are not alone on this world. When the deep ones rise again, and they will rise, call to us. Together, we might achieve what neither of our species could alone." As Sarah piloted her pod back to the surface, her mind was already formulating plans. The colony council wouldn't like it, but humanity hadn't survived this long by hiding from challenges. They'd survived by adapting, by finding allies in unexpected places, by facing the unknown with courage and ingenuity. And now, in the depths of an alien ocean, they'd found something unprecedented, a chance to fight back. A chance to prove that humanity, even at its most vulnerable, could still defy the darkness. She smiled grimly as the surface grew closer. The real question wasn't whether they would fight. The question was whether the deep ones were ready for what happened when humanity and Luminary fought together. Rodriguez was waiting at the docking bay, his expression a mixture of relief and apprehension. "Commander, the council is demanding." "Tell them to meet me in the command center," Sarah interrupted, checking her rifle's charge out of habit. "And get our weapons development team there too. We're about to rewrite our defensive strategy." "Ma'am." Sarah's smile was fierce. "We're not alone anymore, Captain, and it's time we stopped acting like we are. The deep ones wanted to hunt humanity. Let them try. This time the prey was ready to bite back." The colony council chamber erupted in chaos as Sarah finished her report. Councillor Pierce, his face red with anger, slammed his hand on the table. "You violated direct orders, Commander. You risked our entire colony's safety for a fishing expedition." Sarah stood unmoved, the holograms of her encounter with the luminary floating above the council table. The bioluminescent patterns of Zaryan's people cast ethereal shadows across the worried faces of the colony's leadership. "What I did," Sarah replied, her voice steel-edged, "was make first contact with an advanced civilization that wants to help us survive. The same civilization that tried to warn us before our fleet was destroyed. And we're supposed to trust these sea creatures." Councillor Martinez gestured at the hologram. "For all we know, they could be leading us into a trap." A low rumble shook the chamber, causing the lights to flicker. These tremors had been increasing in frequency over the past week. Sarah watched as fear flashed across the council members' faces. Good. Fear could be useful if it led to action rather than paralysis. "The Luminari have survived here for millennia." Sarah pressed her advantage. "They fought these deep ones before, learned their weaknesses. We need their knowledge, and they need our technology." Together. Another tremor, stronger this time, cut her off. Emergency lights pulsed red as alarms blared through the colony's speakers. Sarah's neural implants crackled with incoming data. Multiple contacts. Rodriguez's voice came through her comm, rising from the western trench. "There. Christ, they're massive." Sarah was already moving. "Council's adjourned," she snapped. "Either help me save this colony, or stay out of my way." The command center was a hive of activity when she arrived. The main display showed dozens of massive forms rising from the ocean depths. Their bodies were a horrific fusion of organic matter and ancient machinery, tentacles of living metal writhing as they ascended. "They're heading straight for the outer farming platforms," Rodriguez reported. "Evacuation's already underway, but we've got over 300 colonists out there." Sarah activated her neural link to the colony's defense grid. The automated turrets were good, but against threats this size, get me a direct line to Zaryan now. The technicians worked frantically with the harmonics equipment they developed based on Sarah's encounter. Moments later, the familiar patterns of luminary communication filled her mind. The deep ones rise earlier than expected. Zaryan's patterns carried urgency. "We are mobilizing our warriors, but we need time." "Time isn't something we have much of," Sarah replied, watching as the first of the monstrosities breached the surface. It was even more terrifying in daylight, a twisted mass of tentacles and ancient alloys, its surface covered in pulsing organs that seemed to absorb energy from their defensive fire. "Those platforms have civilians on them. Families. Then we will make time." Zaryan's response was fierce. "Watch the northern quadrant, Commander, and prepare your weapons." The water around the rising deep ones suddenly blazed with light. Hundreds of luminary warriors emerged from concealed positions, their bio-armor glowing with combat patterns. They moved with incredible coordination, releasing bursts of focused energy that seemed to disrupt the deep one's biological components. "There's our opening," Sarah commanded. "All defense platforms, concentrate fire on the disrupted areas. Rodriguez, get me a direct link to platform security teams. We're going to coordinate with the Luminary Strike Force." What followed was unlike any battles Sarah had seen in her 15 years of service. The Luminary warriors flowed through the water like living light, their attacks precisely timed to create vulnerabilities in the Deep One's defenses. Human turrets and combat teams exploited these openings with devastating effect, their plasma weapons and railguns tearing through weakened armor. But the Deep Ones were ancient and powerful. One of them smashed through a platform support structure, sending buildings toppling into the churning water. Sarah watched in horror as civilians plunged into the waves. Then something remarkable happened. Luminary warriors swept in, their bodies glowing with protective patterns. They created pockets of breathable water around the falling humans, guiding them to safety with the same bioharmonic technology they used to communicate. Humans and Luminary, working in perfect synchronization to preserve life. "Commander," Rodriguez called out. "The largest contact is moving under the central platform." Sarah's mind raced. The central platform housed the colony's main reactor. If that went down, Zaryan, can your people target its locomotion systems? "We can do better." The Luminary leader's patterns held grim determination. "But we will need your strength. Your colonists are safe. Now, show us how humans fight." Sarah smiled fiercely. "Gladly. All combat personnel, gear up. We're taking this fight underwater." She turned to Rodriguez. "Get me a squad of deep-sea pods, loaded for heavy combat, and find someone who can modify our plasma rifles for underwater use." "You're going out there?" Rodriguez asked, though he already knew the answer. Sarah checked her combat suit's seals. "The Luminary just saved our people. Time to return the favor." She paused, looking at the chaos outside. "Besides, I've always wanted to punch a sea monster in the face." The next few minutes were a blur of preparation. Sarah and her best combat teams loaded into the pods, their weapons modified with Luminary bioharmonic technology. As they descended into the turbulent waters, Sarah saw the true scale of the battle below. The Luminary moved like a living light show, their coordinated attacks creating patterns that seemed to confuse and disorient the Deep Ones. But the ancient machines were learning, adapting their attacks to counter the Luminary's tactics. "All pods, form up on me," Sarah commanded. "Zaryan will follow your warrior's lead. Just tell us where to hit them." What followed would be remembered in both human and Luminary legend. The pods, guided by luminary-like patterns, struck with precision at the Deep One's vital points. Human weapons, enhanced by bioharmonic energy, tore through defenses that had withstood millennia. The massive Deep One targeting the central platform never reached its goal. Caught between coordinated waves of human and luminary attacks, it finally succumbed, its ancient form sinking back into the abyss. Hours later, as the surviving Deep Ones retreated to their trenches, Sarah stood on the observation deck again. But this time she wasn't alone. Zion and a group of luminary warriors hovered in a specially prepared tank, their patterns reflecting both victory and concern. "They will return," Zion communicated. "Stronger, more adapted to our combined tactics." "Let them come," Sarah replied, watching human repair crews working alongside luminary helpers to rebuild the damaged platforms. "We'll be ready, we'll be better." She turned to the alien warrior who had become an unexpected ally. "Think your people would be interested in some modifications to that bio-armor of yours? Because I have some ideas." Zion's patterns sparkled with what Sarah was learning to recognize as amusement. "And we have much to teach you about the true power of harmony, Commander. Perhaps together we can finally end the Deep One's reign of terror." "Together," Sarah agreed, watching the sunset paint the ocean in colors that reminded her of luminary combat patterns. "That's a word I'm starting to like more and more." The training arena aboard New Eden's central platform had been transformed. What was once a standard combat simulation chamber now housed a massive aquatic training zone, where humans in modified diving suits trained alongside luminary warriors. Sarah watched from an observation post as a human combat team practiced synchronized movements with their alien counterparts. Their coordination improves daily, Zion noted, his bioluminescent patterns rippling in the observation tank, though some still struggle with bioharmonic resonance. Sarah nodded, studying a rookie's awkward attempt to match his luminary partner's energy patterns. The modified neural implants they developed allowed humans to perceive and interact with luminary bioharmonics, but mastering the alien technology was like learning to play a musical instrument while swimming through syrup. "They'll get it," she assured her alien counterpart. "Humans are stubborn that way. A violent tremor rocked the platform, stronger than any they'd felt before. Warning lights flashed as Sarah's neural implants flooded with emergency data. "Multiple seismic disturbances," Rodriguez reported over the comm. "But this isn't the Deep One's usual pattern. Something's different." Sarah was already moving. "Get me a full sensor sweep of the Western Trench, and someone wake up our geologists." In the command center, holographic displays showed a massive disturbance deep within the ocean floor. But instead of the usual signs of Deep One activity, the readings showed something else: regular geometric patterns buried beneath layers of rock and sediment. Dr. Emily Wong, the colony's lead geologist, studied the readings with wide eyes. "These structures, they're artificial and ancient, really ancient." "How ancient?" Sarah asked, though she had a feeling she knew the answer. "Based on mineral degradation," Dr. Wong shook her head in disbelief. "At least 1,000,000 years old." Zion's patterns flared with recognition. "The first city," he communicated. "Our most sacred legends speak of it. The place where our ancestors first encountered the Deep Ones." Sarah turned to the luminary leader. "You never mentioned this." "Until now, it was only legend. Stories passed down through bioharmonic memory transfers." Zion's patterns shifted to darker hues. "But if the legends are true, the first city holds knowledge we desperately need. Knowledge of what the Deep Ones truly are, and how they might be defeated." Another tremor shook the platform. Sarah steadied herself against a console, her mind racing. "The Deep Ones' recent attacks, they're not random, are they? They're trying to keep us away from this discovery." Agreed. Zion's patterns became sharp, determined. "We must reach the first city before they destroy it. Commander, will you join us?" Sarah smiled grimly. "Wouldn't miss it for all the worlds in the galaxy." "Rodriguez, prep the advanced deep-sea pods. Dr. Wong, you're with us. We'll need your expertise. And get me our best combat teams. The descent to the first city was like entering another world. Sarah piloted her pod through ancient underwater canyons, following the luminary escort. Their bioluminescence provided islands of light in the absolute darkness of the deep ocean. Energy readings are off the charts, Dr. Wong reported from her station. Whatever powered this city might still be active. They found the entrance, a massive archway carved into the rock face, covered in symbols that made Sarah's neural implants buzz with recognition. The luminary patterns were there, but mixed with something else, something older. By all the stars, Dr. Wong breathed as they entered the city proper. This architecture, it's not just luminary. Look at these allure compositions, these energy conduits. Some of this technology looks almost human, Sarah finished, her voice tight. The implications were staggering. Zaryan's patterns confirmed her suspicion. The legends speak of visitors from beyond the stars, long before the Deep Ones came. They helped build our civilization, taught us to harness the power of harmony. But then, a shadow passed over the ancient streets. Something massive moved in the darkness beyond their lights. Sarah's combat instincts screamed a warning. Multiple contacts. Rodriguez's voice crackled through the comm. They're trying to box us in. Let them try, Sarah commanded. Formation Delta. Remember your training. What followed was a dance of light and shadow in the ruins of an impossible city. Human pods and luminary warriors moved in perfect synchronization, their combined technologies creating defensive barriers that the Deep Ones couldn't penetrate. Months of joint training paid off as they fought their way deeper into the city. There, Dr. Wong pointed to a massive structure at the city's center. That has to be the central archive. If there are answers, they'll be there. They fought their way inside, securing the entrance as Dr. Wong and her luminary counterparts worked to access the ancient data systems. Sarah stood guard, watching in awe as holographic displays sprang to life, showing images that challenged everything she thought she knew about human history. They were like us, Zaryan communicated, his patterns reflecting wonder and sorrow. The Deep Ones, they were explorers once, seekers of knowledge. But their quest for immortality through machine evolution drove them mad. They became the very monsters they sought to transcend. And now they want to make sure no other species follows their path, Sarah realized. That's why they attack any civilization that reaches for the stars. Dr. Wong's voice shook with excitement. Commander, look at this. The ancient humans and luminary, they nearly defeated the Deep Ones. They found a way to use combined harmonics and electromagnetic pulses to disrupt their neural networks. But the device they built wasn't powerful enough. But we could rebuild it, Sarah said, her mind racing with possibilities. Better, stronger. With modern technology and luminary bioharmonics. A massive explosion rocked the city. Through the archive's windows, Sarah saw more Deep Ones approaching, their forms more terrible than ever. They know what we found. Zaryan's patterns blaze with determination. They come to destroy the knowledge, as they did before. Sarah checked her weapons, an ancient human determination burning in her eyes. Not this time. Rodriguez, get that data copied. Dr. Wong, grab everything you can about that device. We're getting out of here, and we're taking humanity's lost history with us. As they fought their way out of the first city, Sarah's mind was already planning their next move. The Deep Ones thought they could keep humanity from reaching the stars. They thought they could erase the truth of their own fall from grace. They were about to learn a harsh lesson about human nature, because if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was taking ancient knowledge and turning it into something new, something powerful, something that could change the course of history again. Hold tight, she commanded as they ascended, ancient secrets secured in their databanks. This war just got a lot more interesting. Behind them, the first city sank back into darkness, but its revelations would light the way to a future neither humans nor luminary had dared to imagine. A future where the Deep One's reign of terror would finally, after 1 million years, come to an end. The real question was, were they ready for what that future would bring? The colony's main research lab hummed with activity as human scientists and luminary bioengineers worked side by side. Holographic displays showed complex schematics, the merger of ancient wisdom and modern innovation. At the center stood the prototype, a massive device that combined human electromagnetic technology with luminary bioharmonics. The resonance core is stable, Dr. Wong reported, her fingers dancing across control surfaces, but was still having trouble maintaining the harmonic frequency at full power. Sarah studied the readouts, her neural implants processing both human and luminary data streams. The device was meant to replicate the weapon their ancestors had nearly succeeded in building, only this time they wouldn't fail. Zaryan's patterns flickered with concern. The deep ones will sense what we're building. The entire colony shuddered. Emergency sirens wailed as Sarah's tactical feeds exploded with alerts. This time, it was different. This time, it was war. Multiple breach points. Rodriguez's voice cut through the chaos. They're hitting us everywhere at once. Hundreds of them, no, thousands. Sarah's command training kicked in. All defense teams to positions. Luminary strike forces, coordinate with platform security. Dr. Wong, how close are we? We need at least an hour to finalize the course sequence, the scientist answered, her hands steady despite the fear in her eyes. You have 15 minutes, Sarah replied, checking her combat gear. Because that's all the time we've got. The view from the command center was apocalyptic. Deep ones rose from every direction, their biomechanical forms more horrific than ever. They'd evolved, adapted to previous tactics. Some now sported energy shields that deflected luminary attacks, while others had developed weapons that could disrupt human technology. But they weren't the only ones who'd evolved. Execute protocol harmony, Sarah commanded. Across the colony, specialized emitters activated, creating a network of bioharmonic fields. Luminary warriors phased through these fields like living light, their movements amplified by human technology. Modified defense turrets fired shots guided by luminary sensory data, hitting with devastating accuracy. Eastern platform is taking heavy damage, Rodriguez reported. We've got civilians trapped in the residential section. Sarah turned to Zaryan. Your people still remember the evacuation protocols. The luminary leader's patterns flashed affirmative. We will protect them as we did before. But as Sarah watched the battle unfold, she realized something was wrong. The Deep One's attack pattern. This isn't just an assault, she muttered, studying the tactical display. It's a distraction. They're trying to. Commander. Dr. Wong's voice crackled through the comm. They're targeting the lab. Multiple hostiles approaching from below. Sarah was already moving. Rodriguez, you have command. Zaryan, with me. We need to protect that device at all costs. They reached the lab level as the first explosions rocked the structure. Deep Ones had breached the outer hull, their tentacles ripping through reinforced walls like paper. But they faced something they hadn't expected. The combined human luminary defense team moved like a single organism. Humans in powered armor provided heavy firepower, while luminary warriors created bioharmonic barriers and launched precision strikes at vulnerable points. Sarah led from the front, her neural implants interfacing with both human and alien tech, coordinating their movements with mechanical precision. The core is at 90%, Dr. Wong called out, but the containment field is fluctuating. We need more time. A massive tentacle smashed through the ceiling, nearly crushing a team of scientists. Sarah fired her modified plasma rifle, the shots enhanced by luminary harmonics. The tentacle recoiled, but more were coming. Fall back to the inner lab, she ordered. Defensive pattern echo. But the Deep Ones had learned. They attacked the power conduits, causing systematic failures across the lab's systems. Warning lights flashed as the prototype device began to destabilize. The containment field is failing. Dr. Wong's voice was tight with desperation. If it collapses completely. Everyone out. Sarah commanded. Emergency evacuation now. Scientists and warriors rushed for the exits as the device's warning signals reached critical levels. Sarah turned to follow, then saw Dr. Wong still at her station, frantically working the controls. Emily, we need to go. Just need 30 more seconds, the scientist insisted. I can stabilize it. I can. Sarah saw the tentacle before Dr. Wong did. Without thinking, she lunged forward, tackling the scientist away from her station just as the massive appendage crushed the console. They rolled behind a barrier as chaos erupted around them. The prototype, Dr. Wong gasped. All our work. We've got the data, Sarah helped her up. We can rebuild, but not if we're dead. Move. They barely made it out before the lab section collapsed. From the emergency command post, Sarah watched as the deep ones swarmed over the wreckage, destroying every trace of the device. All that work, Rodriguez said quietly. All those sacrifices. But Sarah was studying the tactical display, her mind racing. No, she said slowly. This isn't over. They just showed us something important. Zayan's patterns questioned. What do you mean? They committed everything to destroying that device, Sarah explained. Everything, which means, she smiled grimly. We were on the right track. The design works. They're afraid of it. But the prototype is destroyed, Dr. Wong said, and they'll be watching for us to try again. Yes, they will. Sarah turned to the assembled human and luminary leaders. Which is why we're not going to build one device. We're going to build hundreds of them, smaller, portable versions, and we're going to take this fight to them. She activated the main display, showing the ocean trenches where the deep ones made their layers. They think they've won, that they've crushed our hope, but they've forgotten something crucial about humans. And what's that? Rodriguez asked. Sarah's smile was fierce. We're at our most dangerous when we're backed into a corner. And now we know their weakness. We know they can be hurt, and we're going to make them regret every life they've taken, every dream they shattered. She looked at her assembled forces, human and luminary, united in purpose. They wanted to keep us from the stars. Fine. Let's show them what happens when you try to cage humanity. Let's show them what happens when you force us to evolve. The Deep Ones had won this battle, but in doing so, they'd sealed their own fate. Because now, finally, humanity and the Luminary had everything they needed to win the war. And Sarah Chen intended to make it a war the Deep Ones would never forget. Hidden chambers beneath New Eden's floating platforms had become a hive of activity. Where once storage units held surplus supplies, now makeshift manufacturing centers operated around the clock. Humans and Luminari worked in seamless coordination, assembling hundreds of miniaturized resonance devices, weapons that combined the best of both species' technologies. Sarah moved through the organized chaos, her trained eye evaluating their progress. Each portable resonator was barely larger than her forearm, but contained power that could disrupt the Deep One's neural networks. The air hummed with bioharmonic energy as Luminary engineers infused the devices with their living light. Final testing shows 98% effectiveness, Dr. Wong reported, her face showing the strain of endless work shifts. The miniaturization actually improved the harmonic wavelength stability. Sometimes smaller is better, Sarah mused, picking up one of the completed devices. Its surface rippled with luminary patterns, while human tech pulsed at its core. How many do we have ready? 312, Rodriguez answered, consulting his datapad. Another 100 should be complete by tomorrow's cycle. Sarah nodded, but before she could respond, Zayan's patterns filled her mind with urgent intensity. Commander, the Deep Scouts have returned. You need to see this. The command center's main display showed footage captured by Luminary reconnaissance teams. The deep trenches where their enemies dwelled were transforming. Massive structures of living metal rose from the abyssal plains, like cancerous growths on the ocean floor. "They're building something," Sarah observed, studying the bizarre architecture. "But what?" "A birthing chamber." Zaryan's patterns carried ancient dread. The legends speak of this. When the deep ones feel truly threatened, they accelerate their reproduction cycle. They're creating an army. Dr. Wong's analysis confirmed the worst. These energy readings, they're drawing power from the planet's thermal vents. At this rate, they could produce thousands of new deep ones within days. Sarah felt the weight of command settle heavily on her shoulders. They'd known this moment would come, when the enemy would commit fully to either their destruction or their own. But the timing. "We're not ready," Rodriguez voiced what everyone was thinking. "We need more resonators, more training time." "Time is something we don't have," Sarah replied, her voice hard with determination. "If we wait, we'll be overwhelmed by sheer numbers. We have to strike now." She turned to Zaryan. "Can your warriors get us close to those structures without being detected?" The luminary leader's patterns flickered with grim confirmation. The deep ones are focused inward, on their creation process. Their outer defenses are minimal. They do not expect an attack. "Because they think they've already won," Sarah smiled coldly. "That's their weakness. Arrogance. They've forgotten what it means to fear." She activated the tactical display, highlighting key approach vectors. "Here's how we do this. We split our forces into 3 strike teams. The Luminary's bioharmonic masking will get us close. Then," as Sarah outlined the battle plan, she saw hope kindle in the eyes of both humans and Luminary. It was a desperate gambit, yes. But they'd come too far, sacrificed too much, to back down now. Hours later, Sarah stood in the colony's main gathering hall, facing the assembled strike teams. Humans in advanced diving suits stood shoulder to shoulder with Luminary warriors, their combined technologies creating an aura of power that would have been impossible months ago. "You all know what's at stake," Sarah began, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "The deep ones think they can breed us into extinction. They think their numbers will overwhelm us. But they've forgotten something crucial." She held up one of the resonators, its surface dancing with living light. "This isn't just a weapon. It's proof of what we can achieve together. Proof that when species unite, when we combine our strengths rather than hide in fear, we create something greater than ourselves." The resonator pulsed with harmonic energy, drawing answering glows from the Luminary warriors. "Tomorrow, we take the fight to them. Not just for New Eden, not just for Earth or the Luminary homeworld, but for every species that dreams of reaching the stars. The deep ones want to keep the galaxy in darkness. Fine, let's show them what light can do." A cheer went up from the assembled forces, a strange harmony of human voices and Luminary bioharmonics that made the very air vibrate with purpose. Later, in the quiet of her quarters, Sarah checked her combat gear one final time. The modified neural implants hummed softly as they processed both human and Luminary data streams. Her armor, a hybrid of human military tech and Luminary bioengineering, felt like a second skin. A soft pattern of light announced Zaryan's arrival. The Luminary leader's form seemed to shimmer with barely contained energy. "Your people are ready?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. "They sing battle harmonies not heard in 1,000 generations," Zaryan replied. "The deep ones thought they broke us, forced us into hiding. Tomorrow, they learn the cost of their mistake." Sarah nodded, feeling the same fierce anticipation. Humanity's been called reckless, you know. Too aggressive, too willing to push boundaries. But sometimes, she checked the charge on her resonator, sometimes the galaxy needs a little reckless. Zaryan's patterns shifted to something almost like amusement. "Perhaps that is why our ancestors worked so well together. Why we work so well together now. You push boundaries, we help you survive the pushing." Together then, Sarah extended her hand, a human gesture of partnership that Zaryan had learned to appreciate. The Luminary leader's patterns brightened as he clasped her hand with his own. together, into the abyss. As New Eden's night cycle dimmed the lights, Sarah felt an emotion she hadn't experienced since the Deep Ones first attacked: pure, unshakable confidence. Tomorrow would bring either victory or annihilation, but whatever came, they would face it as one force, one purpose. The Deep Ones had ruled these waters through fear for millions of years. Tomorrow they would learn a new emotion: regret. The deep ocean was eerily silent as the combined strike force descended toward the enemy's birthing chambers. Sarah led the central team, her enhanced vision picking out the massive structures rising from the abyssal plain like twisted mountains. Luminary bioharmonics cloaked their approach, making them virtually invisible to the Deep One's sensory networks. "Strike teams in position," Rodriguez's voice whispered through the comm. "Waiting for your signal, Commander." Sarah watched the enemy structures through her pod's view screen. Thousands of pod-like growths covered their surfaces, each containing a developing Deep One. The sight made her skin crawl, but she forced herself to focus on the mission. "Remember," she broadcast to all teams, "we only get one shot at this. The resonators have to be placed precisely, or the harmonic network won't form properly." Zion's patterns rippled in agreement. The Deep One's neural networks are strongest during the birthing process. If we time this right. A sudden shift in the water currents made Sarah freeze. Something was moving in the darkness below, something massive. Her tactical display lit up with warnings as ancient sensors detected their presence. "They know we're here," she announced, her voice steady despite the surge of adrenaline. "All teams, execute Pattern Omega, now." The ocean exploded into chaos. Deep Ones erupted from hidden chambers, their biomechanical forms more numerous and terrifying than ever before. But this time the Allied forces were ready. Luminary warriors phased through the water like living lightning, their bioharmonic attacks perfectly synchronized with human weapons fire. Modified pods unleashed salvos of energy that disrupted the Deep One's organic components, while luminary techniques scrambled their mechanical systems. Sarah's team drove straight for the central birthing chamber, fighting through waves of defenders. Rodriguez, status on the resonator placement. "Eastern quadrant secured," he reported through bursts of static. "Western team is taking heavy casualties, but they're almost in position." A massive tentacle whipped towards Sarah's pod. She rolled to avoid it, firing her weapons in a precise pattern that matched the Luminary warrior's attacks. The tentacle recoiled, severed by the combined assault. But the Deep Ones were adapting, learning their tactics. Several larger specimens emerged from the birthing chambers, their forms horrifically advanced. They moved with impossible speed, tearing through the Allied formation. "We're losing containment," Rodriguez shouted. "The Western team can't hold their position." Sarah watched in horror as pods and luminary warriors were scattered by the enemy's assault. The entire plan was unraveling. Unless... "Zion," she called through their neural link. "Remember what we found in the first city? About how our ancestors used to channel harmonic energy." The luminary leader's patterns flared with understanding. "It would require perfect synchronization. If we're off by even a fraction, we don't have a choice." Sarah began rerouting power in her pod's systems. "Everyone, fall back to secondary positions. Zion, get your best harmonic channelers ready." The Deep Ones pressed their advantage, clearly sensing victory. But as the Ally forces retreated, something changed. The luminary warriors began moving in complex patterns, their bioluminescence building to unprecedented levels. Sarah felt the energy through her neural implants, raw and powerful. She opened herself to it, letting the harmonic resonance flow through her enhanced nervous system. Around her, other humans with neural implants did the same. The water itself seemed to vibrate as human and luminary consciousness merged into something entirely new. Through their combined awareness, Sarah could feel every current, every movement, every pulse of energy in the surrounding ocean. "Now," she commanded, her voice carrying through both human and harmonic channels. "Place the resonators." The remaining strike teams moved with supernatural coordination, humans and Luminari, their actions perfectly synchronized through the shared harmonic field, planted their devices in precise locations around the birthing chambers. The Deep Ones sensed the danger too late. They rushed to stop the placement, but found themselves caught in a web of living light and human determination. Activate the network. Sarah's command rang through the harmony. Full power. Hundreds of resonators activated simultaneously, their energy patterns linking through the harmonic field created by the merged consciousness of two species. The effect was beyond anything they'd tested, beyond anything their ancestors had achieved. A wave of pure harmonic energy exploded outward, enhanced by the Deep One's own neural networks. The massive creatures writhed as their biomechanical systems were torn apart from within. The birthing chambers began to collapse, their unholy creations dissolving back into base components. But the energy release was too powerful. Sarah felt it threatening to overwhelm their own neural networks. We have to shut it down. No, Zaryan's patterns blaze with fierce purpose. We must contain it, return it to the Deep Ones, all of it. Understanding flashed through their shared consciousness. Every human with neural implants, every Luminari warrior, focused their combined will through the harmonic field. The devastating energy wave curved back on itself, focused into a single massive pulse that struck the Deep One's central neural node. The result was catastrophic. The ancient creatures' shared consciousness, the very thing that had made them so powerful, became their undoing. The harmonic pulse cascaded through their neural network, shattering connections that had existed for millions of years. When it was over, when the waters finally stilled, Sarah opened her eyes to a changed world. The birthing chambers were gone, reduced to inert matter. The surviving Deep Ones fled into the abyss, their hive mind shattered, reduced to little more than animals. "Status report," she managed, her voice hoarse. "Heavy casualties," Rodriguez replied, his own voice weak from the neural strain. "But we did it, Commander. The Deep One's neural network is completely destroyed. They're running away." Sarah looked out at the battlefield through her pod's viewport. Luminari warriors moved among the human pods, helping with repairs and rescue operations. Their bioluminescence painted the dark waters with colors of hope and triumph. "They'll be back," Zaryan noted, his patterns subdued but determined. "Some may eventually evolve new neural connections. Try to rebuild what they lost." "Let them try," Sarah replied, watching humans and Luminari working together to save their wounded. "We'll be ready, and this time, we won't be hiding." Months later, Sarah stood on New Eden's observation deck, watching construction teams, human and Luminari working side by side, building new structures that rose both above and below the waves. The colony was transforming into something unprecedented, a true fusion of two species civilizations. "The first deep space vessels will be ready soon," Rodriguez reported, standing beside her. Luminari bioharmonics combined with human propulsion technology. They're calling them the Harmony-class ships. Sarah smiled, touching the neural implant that now let her share in the Luminari's harmonic communication. "Appropriate. Think the galaxy's ready for us." "The galaxy better be ready," he chuckled. "Humanity's natural recklessness combined with Luminari wisdom. We'll be exploring new worlds before they know what hit them." Sarah watched the twin suns set over New Eden's endless ocean, painting the sky in colors that reminded her of Luminari battle patterns. The Deep Ones had tried to keep both their species from reaching the stars. Instead, they'd forced them to become something greater than either could have been alone. "Together then," she said softly, feeling the harmonic resonance of her Luminari friends singing in her mind. "Into the dark, into the light, into whatever comes next." The stars were waiting, and this time they were ready to meet them as equals, as partners, as proof that the greatest force in the universe wasn't fear or power or ancient technology. It was the simple, unshakable truth that even the darkest abyss could be conquered when different species chose to stand together, to fight together, to dream together. The deep ones had ruled through fear, but the future belonged to harmony.